Okay, I will freely tell you, I started putting all of this together. I got about a third of the way through of what I would do. And I'm like, that's like 3 hours of material. That's not going to work. So I'm going to ask some different questions. And what I think is going to what I know is going to happen is over the next hour, I'm going to present to you lots of different pieces of text. Some of it's liturgy, so that's stuff from our service. Some of it is biblical story. Some of it is commentary on worship materials or on biblical study. Some of it's then post. This is not going to be a comprehensive study of Judaism and angels. This is going to be the beginning of it. I said to Sandy jokingly, we should have just given you little pins, not pens, pins, because how many angels can you fit on the head of a pin, right? I'm going to see how many different kinds of angel, and I'm using quotes for, right? Angel references we can get in the next hour, okay? So I'm guessing you're going to have some questions. I am going to set a timer for 30 minutes so that you have some time, not 30 seconds, but 30 minutes to give you all some, make sure there is some more time for questions, and then I can also keep going. So some of our big questions are, who are angels? What do angels do? What is the relationship between God and angels? Angels and humans. What is the relationship between angels and humans? What are words or vocabulary? What words, vocabulary are used for angels? That's going to be a kind of a significant issue. And that we're talking about sometimes something that's superhuman or supernatural. Sometimes we're talking about a human in Judaism. We'll see how that works. And sometimes we are talking about celestial creatures. Okay, this will all make a little bit more sense. Okay, but what I'm going to ask you to do, and if you're on chat, so if you're on Zoom, what you're going to do is chat who you are, where you're from, and if you like a sweet challah or a savory challah. Okay, so Zoomies, you're going to use the chat feature. If you are at a table, what I would like you to do is you're going to go around your table and introduce yourselves. You're going to say your name, how long you've lived in this area, and whether you like a sweet challah or a savory challah, okay? But that means, Carolyn, you've got to move up to one of the tables so you can sit with people, maybe. Carolyn, do you want to come sit at one of the tables? They have another seat up here in this front corner, and that is my better side, just so you know. Okay, so I'm going to count to 5 in Hebrew. On the count of 5, if you're on Zoom, you can chat your responses to each other. If you're here, just quickly go around and introduce yourselves to the people at your table. Are you all ready? Echad, shtaim, shalosh, arba, chamesh. Please take a moment to introduce yourselves to your people at your table.
For you. Yeah, but he needs to know us.
So, hopefully you got a chance, to, introduce yourselves. Raise your hand for sweet challah. Raise your hand for savory challah. Raise your hand for gluten-free. So, apparently I did a very gluten-forward, pro-gluten, choice there. My apologies to we have quite a few gluten-free folks, on Zoom. I'm assuming that's not why you're on Zoom. And Susan Ellis, you should see a Google Doc that should give you the PDF. If not, put your email in the chat and I will try to, get it to you, get the handout to you. If not, you should also see it with screen sharing, which we have enabled. So these are our questions. Who are angels? What do angels do? What is the relationship between God and angels and humans? What words or vocabulary are used for angels? And we're going to be talking about them as sometimes human, sometimes superhuman, sometimes celestial creatures, all sorts of stuff. My big first question is, are there angels in Judaism? Just checking, because a lot of people, we don't have angels in our tradition. While we're standing in our sanctuary, and you'll see why that's really important in our sanctuary in just a moment. If you're here on Friday nights and you hear the song Shalom Aleichem, you're singing to the angels. How many of you like singing to angels? Good, because we do it a lot, right? It is said that two angels come to observe each family and community begin Shabbat. They watch to see that we have proper kavanah or intention of the heart, and Shalom Aleichem is their send-off, our way of saying we're here, we're present in this holy time, sensing God's presence, okay? So think about that just for a moment, that built into our liturgy is a whole dialogue that we actually do with angels that are something of a buffer, connection, bridge between us and the divine. They're watching to see what we do, how we do it, and they are reporting back to God according to this liturgical setup, okay? It's really kind of a beautiful thing. There's also a little bit of judgment, right? Because what happens if they come and they see that we didn't do it right? Are they going to go back and tell God that we didn't do it right? There gets to be some great questions, right? So look at the text as we sing Shalom Aleichem. We bid these angels goodbye. We say, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, so that's the Hebrew. And if you go to page 2, what do we say? We're saying, peace be to you, O ministering angels. Okay, so we're a malach is one of the words we use for an angel. And when we say malach hasharet, the sharet has to do with the holy retinue, the ones who are controlling stuff out there. Okay, and the messengers of the Most High, supreme ruler, the Holy One of blessing. We then say, so the first one is Shalom Aleichem, come on in peace, you all. We say, enter in peace, right? Boachem l'shalom. We say, Barchuni l'shalom, bless us with peace. And Seichem l'shalom, you all can head out. We've got it under control. Shabbat has arrived. We've done the rituals we need to do to make that transition from the week into Shabbat. Okay? Raise your hand if you realize that was what was going on during Shalom Aleichem. Okay? You all had not realized that, right? Because what do we often do? We just start singing, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharei, right? How many of you are familiar with that melody and that text? You all know it, we hear it, but sometimes we don't see the words. Isn't it ironic that what are the angels there for? but to make sure we're doing it with intention. And here we're even realizing that, hey, we've missed this. We're telling a story and we didn't even realize what story we're saying. Here's another piece of that, which I think is really incredible. Why is God sending angels to help us? Because the transition from 6 days of work to the seventh day of rest and reflection and renewal is not an easy one. Humans need a little bit of help to get out of the inertia of 6 days of week and make that transition into Shabbat. So what does God do? Send angels to be part of that experience for us to help with that transition. The last piece I want to say before I go on to the next piece of liturgy is something really fascinating. What is the Hebrew word for an angel? A malach, right? What is 6 days of work called? Those are the malachim. The labors that you do during the week to make a living are malachim. It's the same root. And so an angel is somebody with a task, right? Or is something with a task. We'll talk more about that as we go on. The same word for what you do during the week that you're not supposed to do on Shabbat is exactly the same word that is used for an angel. Okay? Questions so far? Was that helpful? Okay. Is this what you were expecting? Are any of you awake? Okay. By the way, if you have your lunch, you're more than welcome to enjoy your lunch. This is a lunch and learn. Okay. There is another text. I'm still on page 2, text number 2. There is another text called El Adon. Okay. This is actually part of the much more traditional liturgy you might do in a conservative service. It is part of the blessing of light in the morning. Okay. And it's a piyut. Have you all heard that word before? A piyut? Piyutim is medieval Jewish poetry. So these are pieces of poetry that different rabbis or different writers have written that have found their way into their service. Some of them are very acrostic in nature, that they'll either spell the aleph bet, they might spell the name of the person writing it, okay? Lecha Dodi is an acrostic. Do you know what Lecha Dodi spells out? Shlomo. If you actually look at the traditional words of Lecha Dodi, it spells the name of Shlomo Alkabetz, the writer. He embedded his own name in the stanzas of Lecha Dodi. Okay, so you'll hear all kinds of different things. I haven't unveiled here yet my Gator benediction, where I might praise the Gators as I'm finishing off the service, but just give me a few weeks. Okay, so we have El Adon, and here's another part as we're talking about angels, okay? What happens at about between 5 and 6 p.m. in the evening right now? Sun's going down, right? Okay, where is the sun going down?
West.
In the west. Thank you. All are really specific. I meant like out in the sky. And out now when the sun's down. The stars and such that, right? So if we're talking about celestial beings, there's a lot of, angels are part of that process. Okay. And so there is something in Jewish life that as we're going through these transitions of day into night and night into day, there's other creatures, I'm doing lots of quotations here, that are part of this. Okay. And so you will see this in El Adon, Shevach Notnim Lo, El Adon al kol Shevach v'notnin lo kol tzva marom. Tiferet ugdula srafim ve'ofanim ve'chayot hakodesh. Okay, do any of you know El Adon? Okay, it's this gorgeous piyut done on Saturday mornings on Shabbat morning, right? Because you're having a big celebration. The light is out. It's Shabbat. Thank you all celestial beings out there for helping bringing it. Look at the translation. And so the array of heaven, the Srafim, the Othanim, and the Chayot HaKodesh. What do you hear in the word Chayot? Do you recognize that? Life, okay? And what is Kodesh? Holy, right? Chayot HaKodesh, the holy life, okay? Does anyone see any holy life? Just, right? It's the celestial being stuff that's out there that's part of creation. Okay? If you didn't realize this was in Judaism, here it is. Okay? And as I say that, right, if you remember my afterlife class, what did I say? 2 Jews, 3 opinions. Remember that there are some people that the celestial being angel stuff is really important. It's central to how they talk about their Judaism. And there's other people that say, hey, that's a lot of metaphor. Okay? So if you didn't know A, that this existed, don't worry. You would not be the first person. B, if you're like celestial beings, Ophanim, Seraphim, what are you talking about, Rabbi? That's all metaphor. That's just fine. If you're like, ooh, this is really cool. I like talking about angels and celestial beings and Chayot HaKodesh. Okay, my father did go to the University of Texas. You all see I'm doing a little like bowl with little horns things, okay? Because the melody that we have sung with El Adon almost has like a cowboy version to it. And it just like, if we're talking about Ophanim and Seraphim, and we're talking about winged things and legged wheeled creatures, which we'll talk about in a minute, Chayot HaKodesh sounded like, you know, big, like cow things going through the heavens. Have any of you heard a thunderstorm before? There you go. Okay. Adrian, you look totally confused. Are you okay? Okay, because I'm throwing all kinds of stuff out here. Okay, so if you look here on page 2, you'll see, so what is a seraph? A celestial being. Seraph is a heavenly being with 6 wings that originated in ancient Judaism. It's featured in Christianity and Islam. In Christian angelology, seraphim come to be the highest rank of angel, and the name seraph comes from the Hebrew and means the burning one. Okay? Does anyone remember a story with a 6-winged angel hanging out with God? I'll give you a hint. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Does anyone know where that's from? Tony's shaking her head. Does anyone recognize that from services? Right? Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. It's actually from Isaiah. Okay? There's a beautiful, it's in Isaiah 6. There's a really incredible passage where Isaiah's walking along and then he looks up and there is God. Okay? And there are these seraphim, these winged creatures with 6 legs and arms, 6 wings, and they're covering up various parts. And it's just this really awesome kind of thing. Okay? So, yes. Okay, I didn't read it, but that's a reference to this in Isaiah where they talk about that they have one single leg all fused together. Right? And also, what are they? Have any of you ever been to a Gator game? Right? What are you here at a Gator game? Orange. 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 Orange, orange, orange. Okay. So the Gator colors, if you have 90,000 people in a stadium and one side says orange, what does it feel like? You get a whole wave of sound. And then the other calls back blue and it goes back and forth. And this wave of incredible sound, you can even look it up on YouTube. I'm sure other college teams do different colors, but that's what I know because it's great to be a Florida Gator. Anyway. In Isaiah, you get the same thing where Isaiah is looking up and what are the hosts of heaven calling out? One says, holy, holy, holy is God. And they are filling all of creation with that energy of God's holy presence. Okay? So here you get that reference to seraphim. You know it from that service. So that's when, Helene, you're asking about going up on your tiptoes. It's because you're kind of lifting up into that sound and feeling of one angel's on this side and angels on this side. And the holy retinue of God is calling out, holy, holy, just like at a Gator game, hearing orange and blue. Okay. Ophanim. Ophanim are a type of angel in the Bible, are described as wheels or spheres with eyes. They're also known as the Galgalim or the Ophanim, right? Ezekiel's vision of the chariot, the Ophanim are described as 4 large wheels, each constructed like a wheel within a wheel. They're said to be the color of beryl, the shade of green and covered with eyes. The Ophanim are set in motion by chaos or another order of angels and travel with them wherever God wills. What you're hearing is there are lots of different layers within Hebrew Bible that have these descriptions of different celestial creatures out there. And again, how much of it is you want to get into all of the constellations of these different angels and how much of it becomes metaphor for you. Okay? Questions? Confusion? Raise your hand if you were surprised by all of this. Raise your hand if you're completely shocked by all of this.
How many millions of angels do you have?
How many can you fit on the head of a pin?
You have 2 for every family. That's a lot of millions.
Okay, that's a lot of minions out there. Okay, Linda, you have raised your hand. Linda, did you have a question? Not Linda on Zoom.
No, I just raised my hand as
Oh, you're raising
being
your hand.
surprised.
And what I'm always struck by is you have read these stories, you have said these prayers, and yet so often it gets glossed over because we don't have a lot of language or idea of what does it mean to talk about angels? What does it mean to think about angels? What are these angels doing? Okay. What do they look like? Oh, well, we're going to get to all of that because it's Judaism. There's not one answer. It's all in Hebrew. We don't understand it anyway. Susan Ellis, you've got a question.
Yes, one of my questions was, do you have a picture of what they might look like, artwork that has shown
There is a ton of artwork. There are a ton of imagery. There's a ton of pictures. Remember, it's kind of like the tabernacle that they describe in Exodus, and you can find depictions of it. None of it's a full enough answer to really know what any of this looks like, and it's going to come as a shock and surprise, but they didn't have cameras in the ancient world to take pictures, so we're reliant on words.
right. But one of my questions is, we're taught there is one God, so are angels like servants of God, or exactly?
That's a great question. So I'm going to come back to what Andrea said in just a moment. Are angels parts of God? Are they messengers of God? Are they separate from God? They're calling out and praising God. Remember one of my first questions, what's the relationships between the angels and God? We're going to get to some of those things. And then Andrea so I'm going to get to that, Susan. It's a great question. And of course, it's Judaism, so there's no definitive answer. There's also this other place so Andrea's asking about, what about the angels with the white feathery kinds of things, right? The word cherub is all over the Hebrew Bible, right? What is a cherub? You think of the little cupid, right? And so those are all late. We are talking in 2024 and looking back across thousands of years of story, thousands of years of text, thousands of years of imagery. And so some of what we're seeing is coming out of a Christian world or a Muslim world or a Jewish world where we're getting depictions that are layered upon each other, right? And again, they didn't have cameras. I can give you a great example of the challenge of all of this. Give me a good medieval, not medieval, but even Renaissance composer. Beethoven, Mozart, right? You've heard of those guys. We don't know what their music sounded like. Why? Because the instruments we have now aren't the same as the instruments they had then.
Mm.
And we don't have recordings of it. We have the written music, we have the instruments we play now, but we don't actually know what their music sounded like. How's that for pretty incredible? Okay, yes. We have Gregorian chants, that's true. But we're also, it's kind of how that's passed down, right? But so yes, we have those that are passed orally, but that's the same kind of thing. We have these texts, we have the words, but how they understood the words and what they were experiencing, we don't quite know. Was Isaiah seeing these creatures and hearing this stuff, or was he having a dream? Was he having a vision? Was he having oh, that's a really awesome experience. How do I try to put this into words?
But they had mosaics that depicted those things.
Right, we do have some mosaics, but again, that's one person's interpretation of it. And we have some limited kinds of mosaics. So we do have some of those things, right? We have the mosaics that we see in Beta Alpha, that we see in Sapori. You have like, not Mount Vesuvius, but what's the city around Mount Vesuvius?
Pompeii.
Pompeii. So we do have, sorry about that. We do have some of those kinds of things, but that's the extent of it, right? It's like the Gregorian chants. We have some of that art, but there are limits to what we have and what that means. Was this really what they were seeing and experiencing, or is this trying to put an image to it? Okay.
I'm thinking of the Sistine Chapel, and that's a story, the hand of God touching, I think.
Right, but when's the Sistine Chapel from?
I know, but that's Christian, so that's why I'm trying to, are they representing, because the Old Testament was both
Right,
religious?
but that is the image of what angels were envisioned by Michelangelo in Michelangelo's time.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, and you're also, again, looking back across time and place and history. Okay, we'll talk more when we get into my Kugel class or Latka class. Here's a great example of it. We'll get to this when we do the Latka class, but now you'll all get a sneak peek into the class about Latkas. When did the Hanukkah story happen? What year? About 100 before the Christian era. Okay, so it's about 100 years, 150 years before Jesus is even born. Okay, how many of you like latkes for Hanukkah? When did potatoes get to Europe? Aha! Latkes got to Europe after, potatoes got to Europe after Columbus. When did Columbus sail the ocean blue? In 1492. So the Maccabees clearly were not gnashing on latkes for those because it didn't get there until 1500 years later. By the way, latkes originated a couple of hundred years before the potatoes got there. They were made out of cheese in Italy, but you'll have to come to that class in December, right? So Susan, what you're bringing up in terms of the Sistine Chapel is what you're asking about art and depictions. It's really good stuff, but it's just part of this is we are looking back across so much history and time and space that when you start talking about those things, you have to realize how many different influences and impacts they've had. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a great question. Okay. By the way, do we have Satan or the devil in Judaism? Okay. This is a good example of two Jews and lots of opinions. Tony's saying yes, and John's saying no. Okay? You don't know each other. So how many of you use Satan on the word Satan on a regular basis? Prepare to be mind blown. Yeah, did you have a? Okay, so we do have it in the Hashki prayer, the Hashki Venu. We don't read it a lot, the whole text, but in the middle of it, look at this. Haser Satan milfanenu umeachranenu. Distance us from wrongdoing, or prevent Satan from being before us or after us. Okay, so this is bridging, I think, page 2 and 3. This is part of the blessing that you say you could say every night before you go to sleep. It's the prayer for a good night's sleep, and it has the word Satan in it. We'll also get to Job in a little while, but Satan could be the epitome of our evil inclination, right? We're born with a good inclination and a bad inclination, right? The good inclination, the Yetzer HaTov, is our sense of kindness and compassion and caring and love we put into the world. And as Yoda would tell Luke Skywalker, anger, aggression, and jealousy lead to the dark side. Okay, so we have an evil inclination and a good inclination. Satan is the epitome, is the prime of that evil inclination. And what we're trying to say is, God, shelter us, protect us, push away that evil inclination. Helene with a question.
He comes to God to make sure that I think I had read someplace where there's a good angel and a bad angel, and if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, the bad angel takes over and sort of curses you and says, that we would have this problem next week too.
Okay, so, and this is for the benefit of the folks on Zoom, I'm going to repeat what Helene is saying, that she has heard that there are statements in Judaism that you have a good angel on one shoulder and a bad angel on the other shoulder, each whispering in your ear. Have any of you seen this in the Bugs Bunny cartoons? Didn't know it was from Judaism, did ya? Right? And do you listen to the good angel, or do you listen to the bad angel? Do you listen to your Yetzer Hara, or do you listen to your Yetzer HaTov? And that is one of these ways that you will see some of this described. And part of the way the mitzvot are set up is to get you to choose your good inclination over your bad inclination, because we have free will. Okay? So when we go to sleep at night, one of the things we do is keep that evil inclination away from us, which I need to remember that when I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm worrying about everything, right? And I'm doing all of this catastrophic what if, or if you have that problem too, that here's a text that's talking about that, right? And here's a great thing, is we're talking about angels. Are we talking about literal or metaphor? Are we talking about a voice from out there? Are we talking about our own negativity? Our own sour voices, our hurt voices, traumatized voices, whatever it is that's coming from us, that's pushing us from being the most positive we can be. I'm going to give you a couple of other texts here. Okay, one is from Lawrence Kushner. And he writes, the Hebrew word for angel is mal'ach, which also means messenger, one who is sent, unsuspecting and unaware, consumed by their own plans and itineraries, busy at work on their own schemes, people chosen to be messengers of the Most High rarely even know that they're messengers. I do now know how, I don't know, sorry, I apologize, there's a typo there, I didn't even see it. I don't know how many times in one's life one is also a messenger, but for everyone is at least once. Okay, so as I'm talking about celestial beings and seraphim and ophanim and angels on your shoulder, here's language from Lawrence Kushner. We're going to see that's a little bit more, that angel is not a being, angel is a job description. That an angel is a messenger connecting the divine and the concrete world we live in, and that everyone is a malach, somebody who makes those connections at least once. Pretty cool, especially if you don't even realize it, okay? I bet if we started talking about stories where you provided something with just what they needed in just that moment, right? All of us will have stories. You also hear me say that we'll often find what we're looking for when we stop looking for it. Right? That's, by the way, that's how I met Jill. I was trying to find people to date. I said, this is silly. I'm making myself miserable. I'm going to just make friends for a while. And the next friend I made was Jill. Go figure. Okay. And by the way, it was because of a misplaced phone message that I met her at a Black Baptist church in the backwoods of Gainesville. You all decide if there are angels involved in that. Okay. It's a great story. So here you're seeing that idea of a malach, that angel is a job description, not a being, right? The job description is the energy that helps us, that the sun rises, or the angel, or the job description of the energy that makes the birds sing. Listening to a beautiful podcast. How many of you have cats? There's a great podcast episode on 20K Hertz. It's all about how domestic cats figured out how to communicate with us. Okay? And it's beautiful. How does that connection and communication happen? There's another episode just dropped today that I haven't listened to, all about dogs. So don't worry about dogs and cats. If you want to learn about communication with your pet friends, I have a podcast for you. Yes, Masha. It's on a show called 20K Hertz, Hertz, 20,000 Hertz. And it's all about, but if you ask me after, I'll be glad to share the link with you. Okay. But so maybe as we're talking about angels, stop worrying about if they're little angels dancing all around. Think about it as a connection, the messenger that helps connect the divine and human. Okay. Look at text number 5. In the beginning, and we're on that same page, God created the heavens that actually are not. They're infinite, without end, transcendent, undefinable, right? There's the heavens are out there, and the finite, the physical, earth that wants to touch them. Okay? So we are on the earth. Can you touch the earth? We know it's finite, we can feel it. Can you touch the heavens? Okay. So in the beginning, God created threads stretching between them, between the heavens that are actually not and the earth that cries out for help. God created humans. For each person, each of us is a prayer and thread, touching what is not, what is infinite without end, transcendent and undefinable, with our finite physical healing and powerful and tender and delicate touch. Drawing the infinite and finite together, linking transcendent and immanent in a way that is real shalom, wholeness and harmony and peace. Okay? That's kind of, for me, as a lot of this malach, as we're talking, is that connection between the infinite and transcendent and the finite and physical. Yes, in the back. Okay, so that's a whole nother class. And oh, yes, I will happily repeat that. If God created us kind and loving, how come there's so many evil and mean and grouchy people in the world looking to make other people miserable? Okay, that's a great question. That's another class. Not because I'm God trying to dodge it, but that's a whole nother kind of class, and I don't want to get to more angel stuff. Right? The simple answer I gave was the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer HaTov. If we're given free will, that's the challenge.
Oh, wow.
Right? We have to accept that people have free will, which means sometimes people are going to use their free will to make the world a better place, and other times people are going to use their free will to make other people miserable. It's a bit of a challenge. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and jump into the Bible, into Torah, because there are a lot of angels in there. Okay, again, I love it when people tell me we don't have angels in Judaism, and I'm like, hey, did you read that story? Are you ready? Are there any other questions right now? Okay, so Genesis chapter 18, we just read this. The Eternal One appeared to him, that's Abraham, by the terebinths of Mamre. So this is text A, page 4. He was sitting at the entrance of the tent as the day grew hot. So Abraham's hanging out. What just happened to Abraham, by the way? He just circumcised himself. Okay? So that's why he's sitting by his tent. Okay? So God appears to him. Looking up, he saw 3 men standing near him. Great question. So he sees God, but it's in the form of 3 men. Are they angels? Are they humans sent in divine? Helene's showing a picture of an angel. Okay. Is it God appearing in the form of 3 men? Is it 3 real men, but they're really Malachim, messengers of God? Are they supernatural? Or are they just plain natural? What's going on here? And there's all kinds of answers. But these are Malachim. These are something that we know is a tie between human and divine, because he sees God and it's in the form of 3 human beings, right? And by the way, he feeds them, right? Because Sarah and Abraham run around and Ishmael run around and they feed them. Do angels eat? Helene says no. Okay. I do believe Maimonides agrees with, one of the rabbis agrees with you. Like, right, they're being given hospitality. If someone serves you food, you've got to take at least 1 bite, right? So they just appear to eat. This is a real discussion in rabbinic literature of, well, are they angels or are they humans? Because if they're angels, why would they need to eat? So if they ate, what happened to the food, right? Because by the way, a lot of rabbis were doctors. So if you're an angel and you eat food, what happens to it? Do angels poop? Okay, these are real. Do they look like they're eating what happens to the food, right? Do they eat it and then spit it out? God only knows, but these are some of the discussions that happen in rabbinic literature. If the rabbis, and the beauty of what I love about rabbinic literature is the more answers you get, the more sure you can be. No one really knows what the answer is, but the question is the beautiful part, right? Here we see the experience of angels, and as we read it, it has all of these different resonances. Okay, I'm going to go to the next story. So Genesis chapter 28, please come. We're going to be having Kylie Longstreet Petracco is going to become bat mitzvah in just a couple of weeks. You know, our Shabbat morning services are open to everyone. She is an incredible young lady who probably half of you know. And she talks very fondly about all of you because, you know, she's next president of the sisterhood. You wanted someone younger. How about a 13-year-old? She's actually going to be reading this, right? Jacob left Beersheba. Why was he leaving? Because he had bought the birthright, stolen the blessing. His brother wants to kill him, so he's running. And he comes upon a certain place. He stops there for the night. The sun had set. Taking one of the stones of that place, he put it on. Sorry, I don't like that translation. He takes the stones of that place. It doesn't say one of the stones. He takes a pile of rocks. He puts it under his head. He lies down in that place, and he had a dream. A stairway was set on the ground, and its top reached in the sky, and the angels of God were going up and were going down. If I was really good in this moment, I'd push a button, the doors would open, and the light would show our ark right there. Wouldn't that be cool? Okay. I did not set that up. Did you have a question, Renee? Okay. I'm disappointed I didn't do it. I hear that. Okay. So I didn't want to do that because the Zoomies really can only see me. So I didn't want to leave them out too much. So this is our ark, the stairway going up to heaven. There are angels going up and angels going down. Why are the angels going up and going down? Because the angels, according to Rashi, the angels that are in the land that will become the land of Israel can't go with him on the trip. So the angels from the land stay in the land, and the angels that can go on trips and travel, they're coming down to hang out with him as he moves across this boundary and border. Okay, that's just one answer. Notice when he sees these angels, what state is his mind in? He's dreaming, right? Okay, so here we're getting angels. You're getting Malachi Elohim. the angels of the divine, and they're going up and down. Are they talking to him? No, they're not doing anything with him. He's just having a dream of these celestial beings out there. Okay. It's interesting. I left out a story. Also in Vayera, is there any other time where Abraham and Isaac have an encounter with an angel? Right? Abraham's about to sacrifice Isaac. Is it God that calls out? So God gives him the initial instruction, but it's an angel that tells him to stop, which there's a lot of discussion there. Okay. Just so you see, you have, again, is it his inner voice? Is it something external? Is it God? Is it our tradition saying this is how God communicates with us? Okay. Was it Isaac's question, right? Because Isaac says, Dad, what are you doing? Is it Isaac's question sparks him to look again at himself? Is it the ram calling out? There's all kinds of different language around this. All we know is we see the language of our Torah says there's an angel here calling out to him from heaven. What do we do with that? Okay. Also, I'm going to give you another piece of this. How many of you are thinking angels and afterlife? Right? Because we think about somebody dies and then they become an angel. Judaism doesn't do that so much. The angels are bashamayim in the heavens. That's usually the sun, the moon, the stars, that stuff. Not in olam haba, in the world to come. So when we talk about afterlife in Judaism, you don't see that same language around angels. That doesn't mean we don't talk about spirits and souls. That's all, again, that's another class. I guess I did that one a couple of months ago. There is that language of souls and spirits around, but it's different than the angel talk. Okay? Questions? Are you ready for more? Are you sure? Okay, how are you doing back there, Ruth? Doing okay? Okay, I got two Ruths, and you're in line with each other. So, are we ready for some God wrestling? Later, right? So Jacob goes on his trip. He marries, he wants to marry Rachel. Who does he marry instead? Leah. Why? She was older and he didn't check under the veil, which is why before any Jewish wedding, you have a bedekin where the groom is the one who puts the veil down to make sure he gets the right bride. You know, see what we've learned from our ancestors. Jacob is married to Leah. He's married to Rachel. He's working all of these years. There's some maidservants. He's coming back and he has all of his children. He's coming back to the land. When he was coming back to the land, what did his brother want to do with him when he left? He wanted to kill him. Esau's coming out with 300 armed men. If your brother who wanted to kill you was coming to greet you after 20 years with 300 armed men, how are you feeling? Okay. So he splits his camp, right? It's the bottom of page 4 heading on to page 5. That same night, Jacob arose, taking his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 children. Benjamin and Dinah weren't on the scene yet. And he crosses the ford of the river Yavok. After taking them across the stream, he sent across all his possessions. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. Does anyone have a trouble with that? Who was he supposed to wrestle with?
No problem.
Angel, God, right?
No, anytime you need to use it, please.
Oh, sorry, I'm not sure who's not muted there. Okay, so who is he supposed to be wrestling with? What did we always say that Jacob wrestled with? An angel. But if you look at the text, it says an ish, a man, a guy. He's wrestling with a man again, but if you look through the story, it's beings divine and human. Even, and I don't have the reference here, but later, even by the prophets, there's a reference to the story which says it's an angel. So it's even within the Torah, this is now shifted over that he's wrestling with an angel. But it's really interesting again, is it a being or is it a job description? This could be a man that is there as a malach, as an emissary of God that's wrestling with him. I've also, by the way, heard that it was his conscience that he was wrestling with. that it was Esau's guardian angel. Think about that language. Okay, that it was Esau himself. There are all kinds of discussions. Who was this guy? What is this that it's somehow divine? Okay. Why were they fighting to begin with? Right? Jacob's just there. He's getting ready to meet Esau. What is this wrestling? Why would he suddenly be in the middle of the night wrestling with this other? Okay. It's Judaism. It's all about the questions. Genesis 37, text D. So this is a little bit later. We've got Joseph on the scene. The brothers are all mad at Joseph, and they are off working in another area, right? Israel says to Joseph, your brothers are pasturing at Shechem. Come, I'll send you to them. Okay, so Israel is sending Joseph off, and he's like, oh, I'm ready. And Jacob says to Joseph, go and see how your brothers are and how the flocks are faring, and bring me back word. And so Israel sent Joseph to the valley of Hebron. Here's the problem. When Joseph reached Shechem, a man came upon him wandering in the fields. Why was he wandering? Because he didn't know where his brothers were. He was lost. What do you do when you're lost? You look at your phone, or you ask for directions. So he runs into a man, and the man says, what are you looking for? And he says, I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they're pasturing? And the man says, they gone from here. I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. So Joseph followed his brothers and found them at Dothan. Okay. Now that's where it gets interesting, because of course they see him, and that's when they then want to kill him, and it leads to Egypt and slavery and Mount Sinai and da. If Joseph doesn't find the brothers, what doesn't happen? The rest of the story. We don't get to Egypt. We don't have the Exodus. We don't have Mount Sinai. This is the moment, because Joseph has to find the brothers in Shechem for the whole story to work. Look at that exchange for a second. When he reached Shechem, a man came upon him wandering the field. The man says, what are you looking for? He says, I'm looking for my brothers. Could you tell me where they're pasturing? And the man says, they've gone from here. I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. Let us go to Dothan. What doesn't happen in that sentence? What's missing? Who are you and who are your brothers? He bumps into a stranger and he says, I'm lost. And the guy says, well, who are you looking for? He says, your brothers. Oh, well, your brothers are in Dothan. He doesn't, What, Andrea? Aha! And so Rashi tells us it was an angel. And our tradition has a whole story that this is a malach, an angel who tells Joseph, who knows who Joseph is. And that's how we know this is an angel, because Joseph never identifies himself. The guy never identifies Joseph. He's just a random dude. And that means it's an angel, because this is the person who's in the right place at the right time to be able to send Joseph on his way, so we can have da. And that's why we're here in 2024 in Clearwater. Pretty cool. Okay. So is a malach a celestial being with wheels and fire and all of this? Or is a malach a person who happens to be in the right place and the right time? I have a beautiful story. I'm trying to remember which of the books it's in, but a guy packs an extra set of, always takes an extra set of tefillin with him, because he's like, he never knows when he might need an extra set of tefillin. And then he runs into somebody who happens to need a set of tefillin, and he says, oh, here, I have an extra pair.
And the right time. Would someone think that he was an angel because he was right there where he was supposed to be and not expected to be?
Who?
Anyone. I was stunned. And all of a sudden, Helene is right there at the right time to help me out. Is she an angel?
Everyone has to be one, at least according to Lawrence Kushner, or tradition teaches that everyone's an angel at least once. And you don't even know that you're doing it. Okay? I mean, I will tell you, crazy experience. We were coming back from Israel. We were on a congregational Israel trip. And so if you've been flying back from Israel, you're pretty like grungy, right? You've been traveling for 24 hours. We had been traveling for 2 weeks. I'm in the Palm Beach airport. I come off the plane. What do you have to do after you've been on a plane for hours? You go to the bathroom. Okay. And so I went to the bathroom. I'm coming out of the bathroom, and the bathroom's exit next to the escalators coming down from the flights coming down to baggage claim. One of my congregants is coming back from Boston with her husband at that point in time. She realizes we're probably coming back from Israel. I'm like, Myra. She says, Rabbi. And we run, and she's hugging, when we're hugging each other, because she hadn't seen me in a couple of weeks. And her husband's looking like, who is this grungy guy hugging my wife in the middle of the airport? I don't know. Was she a malach? It was Myra. She's a malach. But it was just one of those moments of connection, right? We were in Israel. We're on a congregational trip. We're at Masada, and Molly Levy, who's now lives over in Tampa, was leading a group from South Florida. We're sitting there right where the cable car comes up. She pops up. Rabbi Matt Durbin, who's in Stewart, and I look at her, and we were like, hi, Molly. And she's like, oh, hi, Matt. Hi, Michael. And our congregant is like, do you know everybody? We've all had those moments. And that's the beauty of this. Is it just a chance meeting? Is it a coincidence? Or is it one of those sparks of holiness that we talk about collecting, right? Are the angels the lights and the fire and the flame, or are they just those little moments of holiness and connection? Adrian.
Okay. So my understanding is that God not only created us and knows our past, he knows something about the future. He must have foreseen that the brothers were going to kill Joseph, that they were conspiring. So he sends this angel down. And the angel tells him, oh yeah, go find your brothers, they're in Goliad. Sounds like a dirty trick on God.
Okay, so Adrian's saying, what an awful thing for God to do, to put Joseph through all of that trauma so that eventually the people of Israel can be rescued, right? That's a fair question, although Joseph, Tanya's asking Kismet, that's kind of part of this. But with Adrian's question, the brothers actually talk to Joseph about this later in Genesis, and Joseph says, no, I know you all did this to me, but I forgive you because this was all part of God's plan to get me here. That if I hadn't gone through all of those experiences, I wouldn't have been in that moment, place, and time to be able to do what I needed to do to save the people of Israel. It gets complicated, right? How do you grow from each experience, right? And we had a lot of this discussion around the pandemic. I don't want to sit there and talk about the pandemic and the silver linings. Like what, 1 million people died? I mean, how many people died in the pandemic? There was nothing good about the pandemic, except look at us here. How many of us, I've got 7 or 8 people on Zoom. I'm able to do all of these pieces of projection. There are people that come to our services on the stream, right? How much of that did we learn? Because here we're in this awful situation. We're going to adapt and learn even as it, and let's apply what we've learned from that awful thing so we can make the world a better place. That's part of Judaism too. If you were at the program for October 7th, that was this past Tuesday night, you heard that a lot. That was kind of Israel's response. That's a Jewish response. Bad stuff is going to happen. How do we weather it? How do we learn from it? How do we keep on moving forward? Because if you can't stop the bad stuff, we still want to move forward. Okay. Here's another great example of this. Okay. Balaam, he saddled his donkey. Okay. Don't you love this? This is page 6. He saddled his ass. If you've ever read this story with a bunch of 11 and 12-year-olds, and I use this translation, it's really a lot of fun because they're like, wait, can I say ass? Is Rabbi, can I say it out loud? And the look on their face, and then they realize that I gave them the page, so I'm going to let them say it, and then they're like, ass. Okay, sorry. And even now, I'm going to change it to donkey because, you know, rabbis. So when he arose in yeah, she asked, thank you, John. It is an atonah. So when he arose in the morning, Bilam saddled his donkey. He departed with the Moabite dignitaries. God was incensed at his going, and so he placed an angel of the Eternal One, placed himself as an adversary, a Satan. Here you get another reference to Satan. Is Satan the evil thing that's trying to destroy the world, or is Satan more like a conscience, an opposition, challenging us as humans? How are we moving through the world? Is this really what we want? Don't you want to make better choices? And you see a little bit of both in rabbinic and Jewish literature, that Satan isn't like this ultimate evil thing trying to destroy all of creation, but an opposition to challenge us, right? He's riding on his she-ass, his two servants alongside. When the donkey, the ass, sees the angel standing in his way, drawn sword in hand, the donkey swerves from the road. Does Bilam see the angel? No. Does the donkey see the angel? Yes. Isn't it interesting, right? That even in our tradition, here's this great story that the angel, the donkey talking, is part of creation, that you have this kind of incredible moment where we have the story where the angel is external, that the donkey sees it, but Bilam doesn't, right? And then you go on, the angel stationed himself between the lanes, right? Because he's beating the donkey. I'm going to skip down to, oops, sorry. I'm going to skip down, got to get it to work. To verse 28, the Eternal One opened the ass's mouth, and she said to Bilam, what have I done that you have beaten me these 3 times? Bilam said to the donkey, you've made a mockery of me. If I had my sword, I'd kill you. The ass says to Bilam, look, I am the ass that you've been riding along all day. Have I had a habit of doing this? Bilam says no, and the Eternal One uncovered Bilam's eyes, and he saw the angel, the Eternal One, standing in his way. We have this really pretty amazing and incredible story of Bilam and the donkey and the angel, and the donkey is protecting him from the angel. That the angel is there to stop him, to prevent him, to challenge him, and are we going to arise the occasion? If I was going metaphor, right, we might talk about the hurricanes. That's quite the Satan, right? How are we going to see that challenge to our humanity? How are we going to arise and realize how much of a challenge that is? And as we are moving through the world and taking care of each other, when we have a challenge like that, are we going to act with grace and kindness and compassion and try to help each other? Are we going to get very selfish and inward turning and take care of ourselves and screw everybody else? Right? There's a metaphorical way of talking about this kind of stuff. Okay? One last, any questions? Yes.
Answer to any of this?
I think the answer in Judaism, okay, hold on 1 second. I got a time-bound question. Somebody asked me a question that if I need to answer right this second. Doesn't happen often. Okay. So Tony's saying, is there an answer? And the answer is there are angels in Judaism. Lots of different ways of talking, seeing and witnessing and talking about angels in Judaism. Some of it is it's that celestial stuff that's out there. And some of it is that idea that an angel is a connection. And what I want to do is show you some of these different texts that it's in the prayers we say, where we talk about this stuff. It's in the stories we read. And to get you, myself, all of us being thoughtful of when we see these references, when we see these comments, not just to let them go by, but what does encountering an angel mean to us? What does it mean for us to be an angel, to be a moment of connection, right? Andrea, you gave that beautiful story. I'm stuck along the road and Helene happens to drive by. Do we look for those moments? Do we try to create those kinds of moments? Are there times where we have a chance to be a malach for someone else? Or when someone is a malach for us, do we make that effort to say, thank you, I can't, thank you to the person, and thank you to God, the universe, however you want to do your theology, for having those moments of connection that we're able to have. Yes, Andrea.
Son was in a car accident with my daughter. And for some reason, he had the dog with him. Well, he got into an accident. And the dog, and he had to go to the hospital with my daughter. And by the time we got there, his ex-girlfriend happened to be passing by right at that second to take the dog so that we could go to the hospital. I mean, they hadn't seen each other and she recognized his car and knew it was him. So yes, she was the angel.
Right. So I'm going to repeat it for our Zoomies. Andrea is telling a story. Her son and son and granddaughter got in an accident. Son and daughter got into an accident. They had to go to the hospital. They had the dog with them, and the ex-girlfriend just happened to be driving by, recognized the car, and was able to take care of the dog. And I guess part of what I'm saying, Tony, is how do we carry around those stories of kismet, of serendipity, of blessing, of moments of holiness? How do we see them also as Jewish moments? That this is part of our Jewish tradition. How do we say shehechianu in those moments, right? One of the stories you have in front of you is the story of Job. Job obviously is a lot of the story of Satan, right? Here's another Satan story of the opposition. I am watching time. Of Satan, this is really the negative. Can I get humans to corrupt themselves by making the world tough for each other? But go to page 8. Do I have any Debbie Friedman fans out there? Okay, so we have some Debbie Friedman sound. She has an angel song, right? And there is a practice in Judaism of talking about the angels that are all around us. May our right hand bring us closer to our godliness. May our left hand give us strength to face each day. Before us, may our vision light our paths ahead. Behind us, may well-being heal our way. All around us is Shekhinah. Mi'enemi Michael, umismoli Gavriel, umilifanai Uriel, umiacharai Raphael. The Al Roshi Shekhinah. May Michael be at my right, Gabriel be at my left. Before me might be Uriel, behind me Raphael, and above me the divine presence. Okay? Those angel language is very much part of Judaism. There is this practice of talking about these archangels of being around us. Michael is one who is like God. Gabriel is the strength of God. Uriel is the light of God. Raphael is God as the healer. Shekhinah is God's divine presence. Ruth, you had your hand up?
That I usually wear this, but I brought it to show everything. I wear them every day.
We did not plan this, by the way.
And then I have an angel at my back. And then I have an angel on my side.
Oh, look at that.
So I'm always surrounded by.
So you will see all of those kinds of different practices. And here is even, and again, is it, oh, I've got an angel hanging around me? Or is it that as I'm moving through the world, I feel that kind of energy around me, right? May my right hand, as I move this hand through the world, does it remind me to connect to the divine? Does the left hand remind me and help me find strength? Do I open my eyes and look for light in the world? Do I feel as I move through the world that healing filling my body, right? So is it literal? Is it metaphor? And the answer is yes. Okay. I'm going to wanted to look one more thing. Okay. We could go on, right? Because there's Unatana Tokef, there's mentions of angels being judged. There's the Sea of Reeds where the angels start celebrating and God says, don't celebrate angels. The humans can celebrate, they got free, but don't celebrate. The angels can't celebrate because my creations are dying. You see a lot of this all over Jewish literature. And part of this is I wanted to highlight it for you that angels are all over Judaism, all over our liturgy, all over our sacred text, but you're going to see it in lots of layers, lots of ways, different aspects and different facets. And so I wanted to kind of introduce you to this so you start looking for it, thinking about it. Maybe you do some more research for it. You can see even Ruth has a spiritual practice built around it. Any other questions? Was that helpful? Okay, Adrian. What? Right. So I think that, again, there's that idea in Judaism that we have free will between our good inclination and our bad inclination. And there is a sense that the divinity within us is part of that choice. And we talk about our better angels being the ones that remind us to choose the positive. Right? I use that language around the Akedah, that it's the better angel calling out to Abraham to make that choice, not to sacrifice his child. Then how could that's another class. That is another, but I will always go back to free will. As we depart, we all have free will. How do we want to choose to move through the world, react and respond to other people? The Holocaust, the Inquisition, all of these moments are times where people chose their evil inclination to an incredible degree, not paying attention to the divine in each human being. It's absolutely sad. It's crazy that we have that kind of power, but we know that we do, right? If you save a life or sustain a life, you sustain an entire world. If you destroy a life, it's as if you destroy an entire world. And that's our tradition. Everyone bring your better angels to the world. Be on the lookout for being angels. Be sensitive when you might be somebody's angel. And may all of us go on a path towards shalom. So we bring everything into balance and everything into sync. There are some different things coming up. We are going to have a pre-Hanukkah Shabbat. This is really important. December 13th, there's a pre-Hanukkah Shabbat, because Hanukkah is not until the end of December. And we feel like a lot of people might be going out of town. So we're doing a Hanukkah Shabbat early with our religious school. There's also going to be a fundraiser for a religious school that's part of that. That's the Shining Lights. If you're willing to make $100 donation to our religious school, you would come up, you would do a reading, you would light a light, bring some light into the world and some resources to our religious school. You can also do it in honor and memory of somebody. You can have a group of friends together. If you have 10 friends, you have to each chips in $10, and suddenly there's a lot of people lighting one candle. There are all sorts of different ways to do it. That's December 13th. We also have one more. There's a challah class coming up this coming Monday. I think there's 2 slots left. Okay, 2 slots more for that challah making that I'm doing on Monday. We also have an interfaith light labyrinth that's going to be happening. We have a Hanukkah bazaar. If you need Hanukkah goods, if you want to have some cool presents, December 15th, that's that Sunday morning, you'll have an opportunity to come here. We're going to have vendors here. We have our stuff from our gift shop. It's a great way to support TBI and to find some of those Hanukkah resources you're looking for. There is a lot more stuff going on. Read your emails and all of such that. You are more than welcome to take those handouts and read them and pepper me with more questions. But with that, I'm going to say amen and thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to stop the share, and to our Zoomies, everybody on Zoom, have a good rest of your day. I'm going to go ahead and close it out.
Okay.